Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. We have with us again the fabulous Bronwyn, and I am sorry, Bronwyn, I cannot say your last name, but
That's
Bronwyn,
okay.
she's back! I can say the first name.
My first
Like,
name is easier than my last name. It's good.
well, you know,
Oelschlegger.
Oelschlegger.
Oelschlegger. Think oil. Oil crusher.
Oelschlegger.
Oelschlegger.
I had a foreign exchange student. Well, she's my foreign exchange daughter. I love her to death. And her last name was Siegenthaler. And I was
Ooh,
like,
that's a name too.
yeah, I know. I was like, if I can say that one, I should probably learn how to say yours. You know what I mean? So Bronwyn Oelschlegger.
There was a point in the past where somebody was just like calling me the Bronwyn, and I'm like, so that was part of my branding for a minute.
The Bronwyn.
Bronwyn. I'm just the Bronwyn. There's never another Bronwyn in the room wherever I go. It's
Right?
rare. So
Right?
rare.
But yeah, and then there's me as building a brand off the two most generic names possible. So
Well, not everybody can have like one of the most unique names in the world.
right.
Right?
All right. I'll go with the unique personality. I'm
Yes,
definitely that.
yes, love that. It's perfect.
Anyway, my listeners, we're having a lot of fun today with Bronwyn Oelschlegger.
Good job.
I
You
got
did
it. I
it.
got it. Yay! But today we are having a fantastic conversation. So today we are talking about creating abundance and freedom even when you don't always feel supported. And this is a big topic, my listeners, because, even though I think abundance and freedom aren't necessarily two words that you guys are super thinking about, like, you're thinking about like how do I heal from this trauma? How do I set boundaries? How do I feel better? Like that's why you're coming here. But abundance and freedom are actually two very key pieces to healing trauma, to working through trauma, and to create good, healthy, strong boundaries that give you the ability to achieve those goals, to heal from trauma, to feel better, to create better relationships, to set those strong boundaries. And so, for that reason, I really felt like this was a great podcast topic for you guys. And of course, a fantastic one to have Bronwyn on with us today. So, thank you for coming up with us, Bronwyn.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. Already, we're having fun. So, all right. So, I'm curious. One of the biggest things that, trauma victims deal with is this feeling of not being supported.
Mhm.
And I hear this like across the board with my clients, like, I don't feel supported. And even now, like, sometimes with me, I'll have like this fantastic goal, this vision. I want to go for it. I want to do this. And sometimes I don't even feel like I've got the support behind me that I want, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so what do we do? Like, how do we not lose sight of our goals when we're not feeling supported?
Well, I can just speak from my personal experience. I'm going to rewind 7 years to when I decided to really step into the coaching role.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my goal, for example. And I was not supported by the people in my household. And that was so blinding to me that I couldn't see the support that I had in other
Mm-hmm.
areas. Now in retrospect I can, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until this sounds so cliche. Please don't take it as trite. It's so powerful. Okay, but it wasn't until I started saying, how do I support myself? Not in the way that I put up a wall and say, I'm mad at you because you're not supporting me. I have to do everything myself. That was the hard thing to sift through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to support me in what I wanted to keep going toward, I had to look into my eyes and support me and
Mm-hmm.
stop thinking they're not supporting me, they're not supporting me, they're not supporting me, and just focus on what I have. And this sounds so trite, right? Do you hear this all the time? It's like, oh, that's like the thing that people want to flick, right? But
Yes.
it was the thing that made the difference for me when I finally leaned into it. And it was a journey, and I had to do a ton of processing in order to get to that point. So it wasn't like flip the switch and everything's okay. It was like I had to practice looking into my eyes and saying, I'm here for you. And shush up the voice that said, even though they're not. It was just, I'm here for me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is, I mean, I guess at the beginning of it, that's it. But then it kind of blossoms into being able to see where the support is. And even my husband now is like very supportive of me, but it was after I started noticing where he's supportive and thanking him and that kind of thing that created that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I am supported belief in me. And then that created the outward display of that support.
No,
You
it
hear this
totally
all the
makes sense.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally makes sense actually, because this is something that I've struggled with personally as well, obviously, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And building a coaching business, building, scaling it to go six figures, um putting all of like the effort, writing a
Mm-hmm.
book, all of these things, which I don't think the book will be out by the time this podcast is out. Like, I really don't. But, it is in the process. I am actually writing a book. And, not all and then I've got six kids and, a husband and like all of these different things and all these roles that I'm playing. And sometimes it can feel like we're not supported because the people in those roles, like my kids and my husband and my pets and my neighbors and church callings and all these things, they all have a certain, I don't want to say expectations, but like certain things that we have to do in order to maintain the relationship.
Right.
And sometimes that feels very like it's stretching us very thin
And chaotic,
and very chaotic.
very chaotic, which I think is part of the problem, right?
Mhm.
The chaos
Mhm.
feeling. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things that people are afraid to do is to bring it back in because that feels or that seems like it's going to feel so lonely, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the
It
truth of
does
the
seem like
yeah,
that. It's
but the
paradox. Mm-hmm.
totally, but the truth of the matter is you're already feeling lonely.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not feeling supported, that's the exact that equals I'm feeling lonely,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm feeling lonely in this. I'm feeling lonely in this calling. I'm feeling lonely in this struggle. I'm feeling lonely.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I actually talk about in my book is that loneliness is not always a bad thing. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we actually want to be alone,
Is that lonely or is that solitude?
right? And
Yeah.
sometimes, exactly. But, bringing it back in, it's gives us sometimes the ability to actually take a look at what's really happening,
Mm-hmm.
what's really going on,
Mm-hmm.
what's actually happening in our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And like, are we possibly putting expectations on someone that aren't being met? So now we feel like the victim. And because we feel like the victim, we're getting distracted. And this is a cycle. We're getting distracted by what it is we act like from what we want to create by something we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Then we begin to feel overwhelmed. Then we start to blame.
Mm-hmm.
Then we start to go into fear mode
Mhm,
and then vengeance. And so like those are actually the adversaries to each one of my pillars. But
mhm,
it's a total cycle if you pay attention to each one of those pieces. That's totally where we go when we're
mhm,
not feeling supported and when we're not feeling like we've got the people behind us to encourage us, to tell us that we've got this, right?
mhm,
So saying number one, I've got my own back. That's like bringing back in the things from the distraction. Like you're not being distracted anymore. So what did you notice, like when you started looking in your own eyes? Like what happened when you said, hey, I'm here for you, I've got your back?
Well, I turned into a puddle at first because, I mean, it felt so im it was like, "Where have you been?" It was like, do you know what I mean when I say that? It
Yes.
it's like, "Why haven't you been here all along? I've been waiting for you." It was like my body was like, "Whew," but I gotta just beat you up for a second because how come you didn't show up before? Like a little kid, right?
Yes.
And then the trust began to develop, and that didn't take forever. I just had to be consistent. Hey, I love
Right.
you. I'm here for you. We're good. You're pretty. All the things that I
Hmm.
wanted to believe about myself, I just gave it to myself. And then I started, okay, it was already coming from outside of me. I just couldn't see it. Then I
Right.
started being able to see it.
Right. I get it.
Yeah. But I think also before we started recording, we were talking about organization and structure.
Yeah.
And that also plays in here. It plays into everything. And I was really excited because I want to talk about this. Organization and it doesn't come naturally to everybody. It does not come naturally to me.
Doesn't
It's
me
a
either.
muscle I had to practice, right? I have some ADD traits and I want to float away and just go have fun. Right? It's something that I had to work for. And I remember this day that I was talking to one of my mentors, and we call it type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, like in the Carol Tuttle thing.
Hmm.
I had my type 4, which is all this organizational genius, right? I had her in the dungeon because she was the brakes and she was heavy and I didn't want to be on the ground. I needed to go have fun so that I could be okay, right? And that all plays into this whole, like, how do I get I was trying to get away from what was feeling unsupportive, and like, this all really ties back into that. I was trying to be distracted by my goal in order to solve that this support didn't feel like it was here, and then it was becoming this vicious cycle of, but you don't support me, and kick my feet out from under me over and over and over again, so I didn't get to my goal as fast as I could have,
Mm.
right? Now, I also want to just say it's okay. If it takes you a little
Yeah.
longer, it's
Oh
line
yeah,
upon line and
absolutely.
it's okay, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
the structure itself in saying every day and every time I walk past every time I go potty, I'm going to stop while I'm washing my hands and look into my eyes and say, "Hey, Bronwyn, you're pretty cool. You know, I
Right.
love you and I'm here for you." And then just be there. And it's something that kind of filled me up. And it still does. I still get a little bit of a thrill out of it. It's like, "Oh, hey." you know,
I like that.
I like how that
Right?
feels. Yeah.
Yes, and it's so true. Like I past trauma here.
Mhm.
Um I don't usually look in the mirror in my own eyes. Like I definitely do, like when I'm on camera and like, you know, I look in my face and my eyes, but when I was in a mirror, I remember freaking myself out one time when I was a kid, like staring at myself
Oh dear.
at night. I was like, this is creepy, right? So I don't do it much anymore, but I do know like the mindset though that creates, because
Mhm.
once you actually realize how much you can actually give yourself, you don't have to get it all the time from someone else. Like
Right.
there's so many things you can actually give yourself right here and right now.
Mhm.
that will start to bring up this person, this support, this confidence, this you are awesome, you are amazing, and we don't have to wait for someone else to validate that.
Also, too, do you ever talk about universal law on this podcast? Like,
Uh
is anybody
pr-
gonna know what I mean? If
Probably. Like I think that there's yes, because but I think it's probably just labeled something different. Does that make sense?
okay,
Like
okay.
yeah, we've talked about like human design, and we've talked about like uh Kushla talks about the energy field and like different things like that. So I have had different things like that on the
Okay.
podcast.
Okay, well, I like to think of the structure that I can count on in this life. There's one thing, and God put that into place, and it's the universal laws. And
Yes.
in some ancient text, he was teaching Abraham about how it all works. And there are these energies that govern this world that God put together for us so that he doesn't have to micromanage us and we can bump up against it or we can work with it. And this is the structure that we can always count on. The people in our life are like wind going between the structure with us. They're not our source of structure. They're not our source of support. Okay.
Right.
So this is how I think of it. This is how I learned to think of it so that I was putting my energy into trusting the right things.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's what really, I mean, I could go on and on about this. In fact, I'm going to be talking about it a bit at the Rejuvenate You event that you're speaking at coming up here.
Hmm.
But this is the thing. Like when I was like, "Hey husband, you're not supporting me," and "Hey kids, you're not supporting me." I was miserable. And when my kids do it, I had a kid this morning who was like, "Hey, we're in this job together and I'm always pulling all the weight and blah blah blah. I don't feel supported." And like you said, victim mode, right?
Hmm.
But if we look at it in terms of the truth of the structure of how the world is, then we have the roof above us, and it doesn't matter what these other people are doing, we can still find some firmness and some support here in these laws. And for
Hmm.
me, that is where I always come back because God put those in there and they're not moving,
Right.
right?
Right. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people need is just the structure,
Hmm.
right? That, hey, you know what? We actually do have the support underneath us, but it's like you said, we're so distracted by what's not there that we don't realize what is
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And this idea that organization brings in support,
Hmm.
you know, um, not only does it help other people feel safer, like people do feel safer when you're organized.
Hmm.
They can just kind of feel this stability coming from you.
Yeah, they
And
feel like
like
they can trust you.
yeah, and nobody wants to support an energy vampire. Like let's just be honest
Mm-mm.
with that. Nobody does.
Nope.
And if you're stuck in victim mode, you're vamping pretty
Yeah.
hard, right? You're
Yeah.
sucking some energy.
Hmm.
And that's part of the reason I think why a lot of people struggle with this is that it's just they don't realize the energy that they're in. They don't realize like what victim mode does or
Well,
the
they're
victim brain.
hurting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important I mean, I just want to validate the people that are in that who are listening to this.
Yes.
If when you are, and it comes in waves, right? And there's line upon line. You're going to come across the next little bit of it. When you're in that, we all go into that sometimes, you
Oh,
know.
yes.
When you're in that, it's I think the structure that you're looking for and the support that you're looking for in that is a process that actually really does work for you to get
Hmm.
through that. And I mean, everybody wants to go fast, right? So that works for you to go from point A to point Z in your process so that you're breathing, you're not pushing anything back down, and you feel better. And that's like the best thing you can do to support yourself in the moments that you feel unsupported and traumatized by somebody else not showing up for you.
Mhm.
I mean, again, it sounds kind of trite, but when you go through your process here and you're going year after year and you're looking back at how well you've done, you can look forward to this.
Mhm. You
You
definitely
can
can.
see how that was it, that was it. And of course our bodies and our injuries want to scream that, but that other person,
Mhm.
and we don't want to flick it and spank it until it's not allowed to feel that way either. You got to process it, but in the end, it is going to feel better as long as you'll be there for yourself and
Yeah.
actually process it.
Yeah. One of so here's what I think. Like when you're getting organized, you're
Mhm,
starting to set some boundaries, and
mhm,
boundaries that you believe in,
mhm,
boundaries that you can really put some weight behind,
mhm,
right? And some energetical weight is what I'm talking about.
mhm,
Some mental weight, some spiritual weight.
mhm,
And those boundaries help create a structure for a fantastic human to grow,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And the reason why we behave like the victim is because we believe we're the victim. We've identified somehow as
mhm,
that, right?
mhm,
But the organization takes everything back in,
mhm,
helps us really, really take a look at what we can and cannot control. And like one of the boundaries, and this is actually a fairly recent one, that I've put in place is I do not live by expectation, so therefore I don't live by control. Like
mhm,
if somebody in my family is, you know, really, really gonna do something, and whether I agree with it or not, it's really not up to me. You can look at somebody and still see that they're like doing some self-destructive behaviors, and those self-destructive behaviors, especially when you love them like your kids,
mhm,
it can be hard to watch. But if we drop into the savior role, it creates chaos. All of that stability and all that structure that we've been placing just totally falls to the ground.
mhm,
But it's all because of the decision that we made.
mhm,
And really, what needs to happen is when we can stay, centered upon, this is what I can control, and this is where I live,
mhm,
is in this sphere of control. It takes so much weight off of our shoulders.
mhm.
And what happens when weight comes off?
You
It's
lighten
easier to
up.
support. It's lighter and
Mhm,
easier to support. And that person that you're really, really worried about that is doing self destructive behaviors knows that because you don't have all this weight, you're actually more of a safe spot because they're not going to be met with judgment and vitriol when they come to you or if they come to you to talk about what they're struggling with.
I love that you just said that because that was a huge turning point in my life. It went from you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe for me
Hmm.
to where am I not being safe for you? And then something changed. It was
And
good.
yeah, well, and that's another reason why distraction is so not scary, but this is why we don't want to be in distraction, is because when you're in trauma, now is the time to get clear.
Mhm,
Because the distraction is one of the things that creates and perpetuates more of the self betrayal.
mhm.
But you don't
My
realize
gosh.
you're in self betrayal
Mhm,
because you're too busy blaming someone else
mhm,
for the way
mhm,
you feel, right?
mhm,
And this is why I'm saying, like, this is fabulous when we get into the organization and bring it back into what we can really control.
mhm,
It makes a huge difference. We might have to apologize to ourselves profusely
Mhm.
for a bit. I know I did too. I was like, oh, sorry, Erin, I didn't mean to. I didn't realize. I did not realize, right?
Yeah. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah,
You don't know until you know. I like to say
exactly.
hypocrites don't know they're hypocrites. Like
No,
there's a type that does, but most of us, we don't know.
right. And you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
And that's totally, totally true. But that's why, you reach out to podcasting and like
Mhm.
coaching and like coming
Give me the
to events,
ideas. Mhm.
right? Rejuvenate you. Like this is why we do these things. So, how do so we've been talking a little bit about like how to get support. What if they don't know what they want? And that's a big problem that I think happens, especially when we're stuck in this trauma cycle, and we're so distracted by our own trauma that we don't know what we want. So
Are you
how do
saying
we
we
get
don't
good
know our
support?
goal?
Yeah, I think because here's the thing, this is something I hear a lot. I want my husband to quit his pornography addiction,
Mhm.
right? You don't know your goal if
Mhm.
that's what you say.
You know your goal for him.
Right. Right?
I think that the person that doesn't know what their goal for themselves is doesn't realize they actually do. That goal is the way they want to feel. And whatever they're pointing toward is going to get them the feeling, or they think it's going to get them the feeling that they want. So if the goal is the feeling, then when we think of it happening, we feel the feeling that
Right.
we want to feel, right? So it's like this beautiful creation awesomeness. But when we're thinking, like you were just in that example that you were just using, when we're thinking, I want them to quit the porn addiction, we're saying porn addiction over and over again,
Mhm.
right? It's the end of the sentence. So what's your real goal in this case would be a happy, trusting,
Relationship.
connected relationship,
Mhm.
right? So if we're saying that that's the goal, that's like the opposite of porn addiction, right? For
Mhm.
you. And I think that being clear on that being the goal is gives you action steps that you can start to take. So that's the clarity. They do know what they want.
But they don't know how to articulate it.
They don't know how to say it like that, right? So hopefully
Yeah.
that just helped. But yeah, we always know we want to feel better.
Yes.
If we can say I want to feel better, we can latch onto that and then we could go, what would help me feel better right
Right.
now in this moment? Oh, I'm gonna go take a bubble bath and that will
Eat a
help me
bun.
feel better. Whatever. Yeah, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
you have an action step that you can take right now because the goal is to feel better.
Right. Right. Well, and it's really interesting too because if you listen, like if you don't know what it is you want, I really love doing this practice, and that is to get your phone, every phone, well, unless if you got a flip phone, if you do, kudos to you, right? Because I don't know any of them that's
Dinosaur
left.
age.
Yes, but like most all smartphones are equipped with a vocal recorder,
Mhm,
right? And if you just start talking about the problem into the vocal recorder, and then you play it back, pay attention to the words you're using, you know, like I can't,
mhm,
should,
mhm,
expect, uh, and any of that kind of language is a very good indicator that you're expecting someone else to make you feel better by their
mhm,
actions. And that's not going to help you actually feel better because feeling better is 100% a decision, right?
mhm, mhm,
And the words that you use are indicative of the decisions you've made. And the thoughts that are going on in your head. And so when you're paying attention to these things, what could you say that would elicit the emotion you're looking for?
Mhm.
That's a really powerful exercise to try for anyone that's listening.
It's a really good idea. I also use my forgiveness technique to write it out and just say
Yes,
everything that I need to say without like with total abandon. And that has helped me see what's going on in me more than anything else. It's like
same here.
just say all the things you need to say on paper. And then, when you finally just your body's like, I don't have anything else to say about this now. Then you could be like, okay, what do we want to do from here? And that's what usually when your body's ready to actually have a breakthrough.
Yes, I started laughing because I've done this too, and I do it in a letter to God. I write
Oh,
letters to
yeah.
God, and then I write his response back, and
That's
because
so helpful.
it's clearing out space and bringing in the good, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But I remember, and bless my sweet, sweet husband's heart, like, oh, I used to think he put up with, like, I put up with so much from him. No, he actually put up so much from me. It was the other way around. He's such a sweetie. But I remember being so irritated by his bad habits. And I don't call it a porn addiction anymore because it's really just a bad habit, right? That's really what it is.
Mhm.
And I'd get so irritated by that. I'd get so angry and so frustrated, and I'd take it so personally. And I remember like writing, God, just hit him in the head with a lightning bolt, like, for crying out loud. Like, can you finally just like knock some sense into him? And as I'm sitting here like freaking out, I remember like after I got it all out, he was like, "Are you sure it's him that needs the sense?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. Okay. I'll swallow that pill. I'll take it. I'll swallow it." But and I say that not to be, judgmental or anything like that to our listeners, because like I totally get that. I get the anger that comes and like how bad you just want to shake someone. Like, come on,
Mhm.
understand, listen. But the truth of the matter was, I would not have felt the desire to have my husband struck by lightning. I truly wanted it. I had fantasized about this. I'm not even joking. It was so bad. And I wouldn't have done that had I been in actual um truth with
Mhm.
myself. That would not have even been like I wouldn't even given that thought a second to
Mhm.
even cross through my mind. Because now the difference is, well, if he's going to choose to do things, that's sad for him.
Mhm.
But what decision do I get to make
Mhm.
because of it? How am I going to stay in integrity with myself? And that is a far better place, I feel like, to operate from and far more peaceful. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah, when I was at that point, I had this epiphany, and I actually want to like there is a fine line here, and we need to just address it. Yeah, speaking of structure and order, right?
Right.
But I had this epiphany. Oh, I just need to let him be however he's going to be, and I need to be okay with it. And we were in marriage counseling, and I said that to the marriage counselor, and she's like, "Oh, you're disconnecting. Stop disconnecting from him." And I'm like, I don't think I am. I think I'm learning to accept that it's okay for him to be whatever he wants to be.
Hmm.
And I'm going to be okay with that. So, be careful what you pick up from people who are making judgments of where you are. But that epiphany is it's like, oh, um he's this and I can trust him to be this and I get to be okay and we'll see what me feeling safe in my own skin does for this relationship, and me like letting him feel safe in his own skin does for this relationship. And I think that that's the defining moment where healing begins in those
I,
relationships.
yes, absolutely. And just realizing that no good relationship starts with the relationship. It starts with you and the relationship you have with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's so painful to see someone else go through something that's so self-destructive is because it triggers something inside of you that maybe needs to be paid attention to for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you're saying too, that it's okay to just be like,
And
okay,
it wasn't a dissociative thing.
no, it
It
wasn't.
was like the most healing thing. And
Yes.
it was treated like I was like doing something wrong. And I was like, why can't you listen to me, marriage counselor? Then I was really unsupported by them. And I had my own little about that too.
I like that. Woo-hoo! I'm gonna use that from now
Hard
on.
times.
I get that. Judgment can kind of sometimes do that. Like it brings up, oh, like, you know, am I wrong? So like,
It taught me that I can trust myself more than I can trust what somebody else is going to understand
yes,
about what I
exactly.
mean. Yeah.
You know, and it's what's really fantastic is when you start trusting yourself, more boundaries just kind of start setting into place and you become more and more aware and more honest with yourself and you just start
It's so
like
true.
structuring. Like it's true. Like so for instance, when I was potty training my daughter, right?
Mhm.
And any mom that has potty trained kids knows that sometimes there just has to be times where you let them run naked,
Mhm.
right? Because eventually they get the idea, oh, I'm going to go potty, right? Well, I had someone that noticed that one of my children was running around my house completely butt naked, and they decided to make a judgment on that, right?
Mhm. I've seen
And
that.
right,
Social
well,
services and everything.
right,
Ooh.
right, right.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I was thinking about this because a boundary I have in place is I don't live by other people's expectations. I live by my intention, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And a judgment is basically somebody's expectation call, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was really funny because once they texted me and they were like, "How dare you? What are you like? You're gonna mess your child up and blah 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 blah." And it's okay if you think you can do things better than me. Have at it.
That's what you said to her?
Yeah, I did. I just left it at that. I was like,
That
it's
is
okay if you
called
think that.
flipping them off with love. That's what that is.
But it's true. It's okay. It's okay if you feel like you can do things better than me. Have at it.
Mhm. Oh my Oh.
But you know what? That stopped the conversation. It stopped the judgment right there.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is I didn't feel any anger or malice or
Mhm.
judgment back. It was just like,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah, I like that. That's really
right?
good. Yep.
But that's what happens when you start putting boundaries into place. Like it's almost like
Mhm.
it was almost like an immediate support. Oh,
Mhm.
I've
Yeah,
got my back.
because it's working in alignment with one of the universal laws.
Yeah. I don't know if I was flipping him up, but it definitely was lovely. Loving
I have a way that I do the flipping off with love.
with love.
Yeah.
Love
Off you go.
ya. I love that. So, so how do we receive fully the abundance and the freedom we desire? So, you know, this is actually a really good question, I think, because again, freedom and abundance isn't necessarily something that I hear a lot in the vocabulary of the people I serve, right? Because that's not something
Mhm.
they're aware of that they're actually searching for.
Mhm. But it
Um,
is.
But it is, it's
It's
totally
exactly what they
exactly
want.
what they're searching for. It's exactly what you're searching for, right?
Mhm.
And we can talk about like all of these things that bring in the support, ways that we can show up to support ourselves, and like the mindsets that come forward when we support ourselves, and the boundaries that just start
Mhm.
placing themselves to build us, because we don't want to ever be out of integrity with ourselves again, right?
Right.
But what's the receiving factor? Because sometimes, like, for me to realize that I was being really judgmental of my husband, that I was actually being a hypocrite to him.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm saying this about me, not about
Mhm.
anyone else, but I was angry at him for not seeing something when I was not seeing things myself.
Mhm.
And so that's like the very definition of a hypocrite in my opinion, and I don't want to be a hypocrite,
Yeah,
right?
I think there's two definitions of hypocrite, right? There's there's an innocent version because it's not malicious.
Yes, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I've seen my little toddler be a hypocrite when she takes her sister's toys and then she doesn't like it when it happens to her, right? It's totally
Right?
innocent.
Yeah.
But
Part of the
um
learning curve.
it's totally part of the learning curve, and it's still like it's still okay to love yourself. Like, there's no judgment. It is what it is. It's not necessarily right or wrong. It's something to be learned from.
Mhm.
But I remember feeling that, oh, I just totally approached this from a hypocritical perspective. And the feeling that came up from that was like, ugh, that
It's
didn't
like,
feel good.
yeah.
I don't know that I want to receive that. And sometimes we have to receive all of it to finally be able to understand it. You know what I mean?
I'm
So
gonna
how do
throw
we
out
do
another hard word because that is what pride feels like. You just described what pride
that?
feels
Yeah,
like.
guilty.
You have to be teachable. Teachable is humble.
Right.
Have a moment. Okay, am I willing to learn from this? Yeah, that was beautiful. I'm just gonna tell people that story. Like, this is what it is. If you don't know how to define it, this is what it is. It's not the same as arrogant. It's not.
No, no, no. It's not. We all
Arrogance is a
have a
different
little bit of
word.
pride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to learn some things like punch you in the stomach. And it's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
yeah. So what do we like? How do we prepare ourselves to receive that though? Like to bring down the pride and to be teachable.
Can I use an example that's kind of off in left field and you're gonna just have to read the principle? Is that okay?
Sure. Have at it.
Okay. Okay. I moved to the city from the country and I grew up on a farm and part of the time was on a farm and part of the time was in a mountain, which I loved, right?
Ooh, I love it. Yeah, I live 5 minutes from a mountain, and it's like the best.
So I knew I knew what felt good. And then I moved to the city and it's like, I feel trapped. Trapped is the word.
Mm.
Trapped here, away from nature. And nature is so important to me. And I want that nature. And I hate this city. I hate this city. I hate this city. Why do I have to stay here? Blah, blah, blah. I feel trapped, right? This sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And and I live at the base of a mountain, almost at the opening of a canyon. So guess what's just right there?
The
There's
mountain.
all this nature and this mountain and everything, but I couldn't see it, even though it was right there, because right here in this immediate space, all I was willing to see was the city because I hated it. But
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, this is new. The other day, it's been about 2 months ago now, I guess. I said, Heavenly Father, I need to feel like I'm in the nature. I need to be able to feel like I experience it every day. Please help me. And it was like the next day I was outside and my eyes were drawn to this beautiful scene That's right here. It's so big. It's right here, right? And I mean, that was it. I asked to be able to see it. And I
Love that.
and that when I ask for it, obviously I'm ready to receive it, right? So
Hmm.
now when I go out, I can see, like, at the time that I asked for this, I don't know, it was still winter. Okay, it was still snow on the mountains the day that I woke up to the fact that I have this exactly what I want right here. I have it already. It's mine. I just don't live on 2 acres, you know? I don't it's just a little bit different right now, but it's right there in my backyard still. And I can go be in it and I can see it. And I can see it in panoramic, if I just go and look.
Yes,
I think that's the answer. We get to ask to be able to see it so that we can receive it
I love that.
because it's there. It is there.
You
Everything we
know,
want is right there. It really is.
yes. Well, and it's something that we can call in with our voice.
Mhm,
I'll tell you what's amazing. I'm learning recently about like God's provision, right? And,
mhm,
and
mhm,
his abilities to actually give us the things that we desire.
mhm,
And when we are willing to see what it is that's blocking us
mhm,
from receiving, like you were saying, like because I was too busy focused on what I didn't want, that's the block,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And but when we actually can see the possibility without the block,
mhm,
then we have a way to actually achieve what it is we want. So like, excuse me, for instance, like, I talk about my sweet husband on this podcast, and he really, really is just a fantastic human. I'm so proud of him for
mhm,
all of the work he's done and for being so patient with me, as I was dealing with my victim mentality.
mhm,
And but I remember thinking all I could see was his faults, his problems, and like coming down on him. And no wonder why our marriage struggled. I blamed his bad habits, but it wasn't his bad habits. It was his victim and my victim constantly at each other,
mhm,
right? And pecking away at our foundations. And so once I saw the possibility without, the block, which was I was so focused on this, right?
mhm.
Blocks are often what it is we are hyper focused on that are not serving us.
Right. And it's like the plug that
It's
keeps you
like
from receiving. Yeah.
totally. And so once you pull the plug and you start to actually focus on something that's going to serve you,
Mhm.
start to receive the blessing. You know what I
Start to
mean?
drink it in,
Yes.
like
And
really drink it in.
and I was so scared. Like I remember like I'm thinking back to my own experience like how terrified I was to just let it go.
Because
Because
then you're saying it's okay.
yeah, right?
And
That's literally what I
you're
thought,
inviting it to happen again.
right?
Yeah,
Like
right,
that's
it's
what
the
I thought.
lie. Yeah.
And you know what? It did happen again, over and over and over again. And it was constantly re-triggering me, but it wasn't until I realized that it was because I was trying to control it.
Mhm.
And because I was trying to control it, I could not control the things that I truly wanted.
Yeah.
I couldn't control myself, right? And once I decided to give it back to him, trust God with the whole situation, like, hey, you can do more here than what I can, then he put me in a position to heal from that trauma. And all healing is literally just taking that trauma
Mhm.
and giving it a specific name, like control, an
Mhm.
obsession for control, and sticking it beneath your feet and using it
Wow.
to pave your way forward. That is exactly what it is.
That is really good straight talk for people that are hung up on their trauma label. I like that.
Well, it's true.
It is true. And it's I like straight talk. It's like, whoa, okay, where am I doing that? Yeah, I mean that is some really good taking off the blinders. That is really good.
Thank you.
I
I'll
mean,
bow to take a bow.
yes, that should do take a bow. That was fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's, the thing is that's really awesome is that once I decided to receive myself by getting rid of the control, by using that as my stepping stone
Mhm,
to become up, like climb up and higher, then
mhm,
this became fun.
mhm.
And this is why I can laugh about it now, and this is why I can joke. And like, it's not because I'm making fun of anybody else's experience, right?
No, it's
Or
hard.
even it's way hard. And even my own experiences. And just a few months ago, like you can talk to my business coach Kushla, but I would kept like over some things, and she was just like, Erin, you teach this stuff. You teach it, right? And I was like, oh yeah. We still all fall into these patterns, but it gets to be fun. It
Mhm,
really does get to be fun, and we get like it's enjoyable. It's play when you get to heal. It's exciting. Like the
mhm,
next version of yourself. It's
mhm.
it's exciting stuff. So, yeah, anyway, my thoughts.
It really is fun. I was thinking of like moments. It's those moments. It's not fun all the time, but have you ever thought of progress like a spring? I'm gonna just go into it like a
Like a okay,
like
I'm
a boingy
thinking like a,
spring.
yeah, boingy spring. I was thinking like a water spring. Okay, yes. Okay, same page
So
now.
yeah, so you're going up and it swoops and there's this hard spot where you're climbing, and then you plateau and it's like, whew, and then you go down and it's like, oh, and then you're climbing, and it's like, yay. And every time you get up to this plateau, it's like you can see this panoramic view of where you've been and that you just leveled up again. And it's like this new
Mm-hmm.
version, like you were saying, this new version of you, because yeah, that's what I thought of when you said that. I like it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the Michelangelo. You've got things you got to chip away at. There's things that got to fall off.
Mhm,
And the thing that the thing like hmm, the person, let's just go with that one. The person that emerges from the next version of the chipping away
mhm,
is someone you can be proud of. And
mhm,
that's a fun, exciting feeling. And
mhm,
it's like it's not like I wasn't proud of who I was before. As I like so I healed from like betrayal trauma, right?
mhm, mhm,
And then, as I've been growing my business, and business kind of tends to do this, like brings up the blocks, right? More of the
mhm,
trauma, more of the mindsets, more of the things that still need to shift, grow, and change. And so as I've been doing that and shifting and growing in my business, other things started coming up still. And now it's like, again, just that whole new level of clarity, and this is fairly recent actually. And more just like letting go of even more,
mhm.
bringing more into what it is I can actually control. And that's a powerful,
Mhm.
position and I'm feeling more freedom. I'm seeing, I'm not even joking. Like, this is the craziest thing. I'm like, oh, there's nothing in my bank account today. Lord, I have like $152 coming out. Is there a way like you can help me create that? I'm not even joking. It happens every single time now.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know? He's like, "Oh yeah, it's right here." I'm like, "Oh,
The
okay."
power of the ask.
The power of the ask and the power of being willing to receive and to actually see it right in front of you.
Mhm. That's
That wilderness
manifesting. Yes.
manifesting, right? It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Mm.
Ah, Bronwyn, so much fun. Always a joy to have you on our
Thank you.
podcast. Now, also, listeners, something really exciting is happening come this March. We have the Rejuvenate You event, which I will be actually speaking at with Bronwyn. So if you
Mhm.
guys want to come check us out, I've got a link down below so you guys can purchase your tickets and come see me in person. Come meet Bronwyn in person, and see what we've got to offer. I'm going to be talking about healing from betrayal trauma, and I am also going to be offering free breakout sessions for you guys to come and chat with me and see what we can do to heal your trauma as well. So this is going to be
Yes, yes, yes.
fantastic. What are the dates for that, Bronwyn?
That is March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2024. And we do this event every March.
Yes.
So, yeah, really excited to have you come and teach your 7 pillars of, tell me again, 7 pillars of living
The
an
7 pillar.
unashamed life, right?
Yes, you got it.
Awesome. I
Yes.
am very excited about that. It's going to be fantastic.
Yes, I'm excited. And I'm hoping to have my book out by then too, so you guys can come and get a book
Woo!
as
Let's
well.
go.
So yes, I'm excited. It's going to be awesome. Ooh, good stuff. Good, good,
It's
good
going to be
stuff.
really, it's always a really good event. I hear this is the best. I hear this. I've been to so many of these events, like tons, and this is the best one I've ever been to. It is so rich with different perspectives, and it's all to rejuvenate you and help you reconnect with your purpose and yourself so that you can feel all filled up and get back to it. That's the
Oh,
point.
yummy. I
It's
love it.
really good. It's really
I
good.
love it. Come invest in yourself, you guys. Come hang out with me. Come hang out with Bronwyn. It's going to be
Yeah.
fantastic.
In Provo, Utah.
Provo this okay.
Hmm.
That's nice because that's not too so we can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Next week, you guys, we've got Corey Sullivan coming back. We are talking about freedom after divorce. So stay tuned for that if you're looking to get some ideas of how you can set some boundaries with an ex, still stay in boundaries with yourself and still stay in peace with yourself. Tune in for that episode next week. And in the meantime, we'll see you on the other side. Bye, guys.
Bye.